What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network. He is Andrew Destin. I am Noah Hiles. Andrew, we got a lot to talk about today. Pirates sweep the Marlins. The biggest story. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, the Pirates did sweep the Marlins. They've won now 4 in a row, right? Four in a row, 7 of their last 10. But that's not the big news with this team. The Pirates, congratulations. You beat one of the worst team in the National League, second worst team in baseball, I believe. The big news to come from today came before today's game, and it was with Ben Cherington, the team's general manager, who announced Wednesday morning that he expects Derek Shelton to return as the club's manager in 2025. A lot to dive into here, Andrew. And I think first thing we need to establish is this does not guarantee Derek Shelton will be back next year. He did not say that. He did not say, I'm telling you now, Derek Shelton will be this club's manager. He says he fully expects that to happen. Andrew, why is the difference in rhetoric worth noting here?
Supremely important because 2 points, I guess I'll say. First and foremost, we'll lead with the fact that Derek Shelton last year did receive a contract extension from the Pirates. So that's worth noting from the term of, the unknown finances that we're not privy to of how much term is remaining on Shelton's deal, all those sorts of things. Because if in writing he is under contract for the 2025 year, then as of right now, while Derek Shelton is still manager, Ben Cherington shouldn't expect anything different, especially with 2.5 weeks remaining in the regular season. The second point here is that, at least in my mind, Ben Cherington's job by no means is a given that he will be back. So given the thought of, okay, if Cherington thinks he's still returning, and if he still thinks he's calling the shots here, at least when it comes to things like who the manager is and who is on his staff, then if he is content with the job the Pirates are doing under his direction, then why would he speak anything differently, especially while there's time still remaining in the season?
It's also worth pointing out that O'Neal Cruz was a player that this general manager said was the Pirate shortstop. And then 8 days later, he was answering questions about O'Neal Cruz getting moved to center field, a move that he was a part of. So, and I don't think that Ben was necessarily lying when he said these things.
Correct.
It's just things change over the course of a baseball season. So my big takeaway from Cherington going out and saying that was, A, he's cognizant of the fact that some people believe that changes need to be made.
Yep.
And I'm sure he's cognizant of the fact that those changes don't just stop at the Major League coaching staff. He knew he was going to be asked that question today, and he answered it in a way that he could justify. That right now, sure, that's the plan. But if that plan changes, he has an out. He didn't lie. And I think that part of the thing that will determine if Shelton's back or not is how this club finishes out the season. And also, who else is retained? So we'll move on to this point, Andrew. Were you surprised by these remarks? I don't think you were surprised. It would have been more surprising if he just said, no, he's gone. We're not renewing him. And they just had him manage the rest of these games. That would have been very surprising. But were you surprised by any of the remarks he made today?
Not particularly. I think the only thing that maybe would catch me a little bit more so would be, how, direct it was, more so the, fully expects him to be back. Because there's certain ways that you could have answered the question of, we want to let the season play out before we make any decisions about the future of the franchise. You could have made any myriad comments, but I think that was maybe a little bit more of a significant vote of confidence. And, manager Derek Shelton was asked, how did he feel about getting that kind of vote of confidence from Ben Cherington, and, spoke to how, he thinks he can be better, but the team can be better. I think that's maybe more the surprising element of it, is that it's coming from a place of wanting continuity while also understanding things need to improve. That's the part that to me is a little bit, there's a lot to digest and kind of devolve there.
I was also surprised by some of the reasoning in a way. And not to say that it's invalid, but a big part of the emphasis that Cherington put on his belief in Shelton was work ethic, and no one tries harder than this staff. And all that's great, but trying hard means nothing if you don't get results in Major League Baseball. You could give me a bat, and I would try as hard as I possibly could to hit Paul Skeens. Probably not happening,
right?
And that's not to say that I am comparable of a Major League hitter as the Derek Shelton is a Major League manager. He is better at that job than I would be as a Major League Baseball player, obviously. But I'm just saying that was an interesting route to go where you're highlighting effort. And I know that, if you're highlighting wins and losses, there aren't a lot to highlight. Obviously, they're on their way to having their 5th straight losing season under this regime, 6th in the history, or 6th as a franchise. But I feel like there are things that you could point out. You could point out that he does have a good rapport with this young core, and that this team does trust him. And there were other things that I think you could have leaned on rather than just saying he tries hard, because you should try hard, right?
That's kind of
the point of getting money for a job, right? I don't know. So we'll move on now to kind of the last talking point here. What happens next? What changes do we think occur? There are some changes that are already in motion that we'll highlight here. But Andrew, I'll start with you. What do you think? How does this all play out? Is Derek Shelton back next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think candidly on the spot, I think he's back. However, the coaching staff in its current form, I can't believe that it comes back. And I don't think it's as simple as I'm sure many of you here who have mentioned it many times of wanting Andy Haynes to no longer be the hitting coach. I think that's certainly well in play. But I wouldn't be surprised if that was the only coaching change, whether that's him, whether it's the assistant hitting coach, Christian Marrero. I look at the bullpen. A question I asked Ben Cherington today was, why has having a good bullpen been such a challenging task? The highest they've ever finished in bullpen ERA in his 5 years is 19th. This year it was supposed to be a strength. They're 27th in baseball in bullpen ERA. So maybe that falls on bullpen coach Justin Message. I'm not advocating for people to lose their jobs, nothing of that ilk. It's more that I think Shelton returns, but I think there's various coaches on the staff you could point to and say maybe they're at greater risk than Shelton is.
And I think it goes further than the coaching staff. I agree with what you said with, I think, unfortunately for him, I think Andy Haynes is probably going to be replaced. I think that's probably, if you had to bet on something, that would probably be the safest thing to bank on, just because the offense has been a struggle. And, that's been a move they've made in the past. They've fired one hitting coach already under Derek Shelton. So that would be one thing I would look at. And I hear what you're saying with the bullpen and everything else. But I think there's going to be more changes to the front office as well. There's already 3 open positions in the baseball operations staff, high leadership roles that Cherington talked about. Junior Vizcaíno was the director of international scouting. He will not be renewed. We knew this. This came out late August. So Cherington talked about that. But there's 2 other ones. The one that we broke on, which is the second opening, director of pro scouting. That position was held by Will Lawton. Sources told us that Will Lawton will remain in the Pirates organization. He's just being reassigned a different role, perhaps one of these other roles that are open, or maybe something else that's open there. So they're looking for a new director of pro scouting. And then the third opening was director of research and development. And that role was previously held by Sean Ahmed, who resigned. So those are 3 very big positions, Andrew. Ones that you don't necessarily know the people who hold those titles. I mean, I covered the team. I'll be honest, I didn't know Sean Ahmed's name. I don't think, did you?
Yeah, right. I mean, knew Lawton, didn't know Ahmed.
Yeah, you hear those names, but you can't instantly point to it, right? You have to look that up, and they come up in conversations, but these are people that have an impact on the team, a big impact. And I think that there are other people in very high roles, not just general manager, but you look at player development, you look at how they're developing hitters, how they're evaluating talent, things that you can question under this regime. Why are these prospects not developing? Why is this farm system ranked the same way? Why are they kind of misidentifying position players they acquire via trade or free agency? Who are the people making these decisions? And are they fit to be in these roles, or could they find someone better? I think these are moves that are going to be made. And Cherington kind of said that those are the types of changes we're going to see this offseason. I think we're going to see new people put in higher importance in the front office. They're going to kind of maybe look at the way they develop and value talent in a different way now. And I think that is totally necessary, because getting down to brass tacks, despite everything that's been bad here this year, I think we'll both agree there's a skeleton of a decent baseball team here.
Yes.
There is talent. It's just not deep enough of an organization right now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't fall on the major league manager. It doesn't fall on the hitting coach or the pitching coach. And it doesn't necessarily just fall on the GM either. It falls on the people that work for the GM, who go to the GM and say, this is a guy we need to draft. This is a guy we need to trade for. This is a guy we need to sign. This is a guy that we think will be a difference maker. Those people haven't been good enough. And I think that the Pirates recognize that and are making changes.
And it's why we're seeing tangibly, to use a stat like MLB Pipeline, you look at where the Pirates farm system is at now versus where it was a year or 2 years ago. And obviously that's propped up by things like Paul Skeens being drafted and, Jared Jones coming into the big leagues. But once those guys graduate out of that class of prospects, we've seen where the Pirates farm system is ranked now. And frankly, for a team that for the last 5 years has had a losing record, is on its way to a 6th year of a losing record, farm system needs to be better. And I think that's a key component to why we're seeing these kinds of changes.
He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. You can check out our work at post-gazette.com, and you can keep tuning in to the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network for all of your Pittsburgh sports coverage. We will be back this weekend. The Royals coming to town. This guy will have you covered. Take care.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.